Hello, how are you? I'm Danny. Thank you for clicking on my channel. Today I'm going to try and sell you on yet again another book that I thoroughly enjoyed. And today's book is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abidare. But before I get into this book, I feel like I have to give a lot more context so it's like understandable when I narrate it or when you read this book, right? So in certain parts of the world, but let's just say Nigeria for better context, there are two different kind of people that I'm going to try to categorize. There are people who live in the metropolitan areas, and there are people who don't live in the metropolitan areas. And as you can imagine, maybe anyone immigrating into America looking for better opportunities, it's the same with people moving to these metropolitan areas, right? So I'm going to say Lagos, Nigeria, and people who don't live in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, obviously, there are a lot better opportunities for people who live in Lagos, depending on what you want to do. There's a vast, amount of industries and things you could be doing. So you have certain amounts of people who then decide to move to these cities looking for jobs, and anywhere you would look for opportunities, you start the most basic or the first thing you can find because you need to pay bills or you just need to find your footing, right? So in context with this particular book, there are people who move to cities and they become the help or housemates, as people would say, regularly in there. And depending on the tax brackets of the home you're in or the house you're working at, it's going to vary what you would be doing. So there are people who are only there solely to cook for the family and to clean the kitchen, and that's it. They don't do anything else. Sometimes they're subjected to just the kitchen and their quarters. They don't step into the house. And there are people who live in these particular places and they clean the house, they feed the kids, they feed the dogs, they probably wash the cars, they're in charge of security detail. Again, it depends on the tax brackets. And these people are subjected to these jobs and they get paid. And now there's also a different area where you have an agent, right? So an agent with whatever industry, you give a certain percentage of your money or how much you're paid to your agent, right? We all know how that works. Now, unfortunately, for some of these people, they tend to be illiterate in some kind of way, so either financially or they just don't really speak so much English that they trust their agents to help mediate with their boss or their employer. And most cases, than some, these agents tend to be very phony and they take most of these people's money, or the boss is just paying the agent directly and they don't give the people working, they don't give them their money. That happens as well. Or the person that's working at this house who's looking for an opportunity, they're very literate and they read and they understand money and they just get paid directly, but then they get into some kind of feud with their agents. There are different things that could happen, right? But that's the precedent of what I want to set. Now, obviously, this isn't the norm for people who don't live in this certain culture, because in America, you're used to doing things yourself. You don't really have a maid unless, again, you're in a different tax bracket. You don't have a driver, you don't have someone cooking and cleaning for you, right? And again, sometimes these people, I have to hammer on the fact that it depends on the tax brackets. You could just maybe be there to cook and you leave the house. And there's some people who live in the house maybe 360 days out of the year. They're living in the house, they're cooking, they're doing everything. They're in charge of cooking for the kids. And again, it depends, but that's kind of what I wanted to set up for you. Now, when we're talking about this book, we're following the protagonist, Aduni, who I'm going to start by saying is a character that's you're rooting for 24/7. And she makes a lot of decisions that, trying to benefit her life that makes you think, oh my gosh, what are you doing? How can you do this, right? So Aduni lives in a household. Her mother has passed and it's her father, her little brother, and her older brother. Her older brother is already working in the workforce, and her father sells her to marriage because he has to settle the bills. And this is just based on his circumstance. If he didn't have to, he wouldn't have, but he sells his daughter to marriage, and she's sold into a family of two pre-existing wives, and they're older than her. And as you can imagine, there's some kind of animosity because she's the new girl in the block and she's now the apple of the husband's eye, and he's going to neglect his other two wives and the kids as well. Now she's living in this family and she's young. I think she's 12, 11. She's not old enough to be married, let's just say. And she has things she wants to do. She has things she wants to aspire to be. She enjoys reading, and her and her mother, before her mother passed, they had very intense conversations of what she could do with her life. So Adeni's in this house, in this marriage, and she knows she can't afford to get pregnant. She knows that she can't be there long enough to be so embedded in this family, right? So something happens and Adeni has to run away. She has to look for solace somewhere else. So she looks for her mom's closest friend that, is on the brink of like death because she's sick as well, she's old. And her mom's friend is indebted to her mom, so in turn indebted to Adeni. And she says, okay, I know exactly who's going to help you, and that becomes an agent. The agent who has to take her out of the country, out of the States to Lagos to help her find a job. Now, this agent is taking her to Lagos and is telling her, look, you can do this, that, this is how much you're going to get paid, I'm going to get this certain amount. And Adeni moves to Lagos. She moves to this house. Let's just say, she never really gets the money, but she's living in this house so that she thinks she's going to get better opportunities because her boss and her husband are like, they're wealthy and it's a big house, and she's subjected to these like duties that are really impossible for one person, especially a minor, to be doing. Now, Adeni makes a friend with another employee in the house who kind of makes it clear that like she can do better with her life, and he's informed of a certain opportunity that's going to make her life a lot better, and Adeni is pursuing this. But at the same time, she encounters some kind of unfortunate incidents in this house that aren't so foreign to the people who live in the house, but it's just unfortunate that Adeni has to be subjected to go through them if she wants to stay here and have this opportunity, that she has to like keep her mouth shut while watching some things. And that's the summary of the book I would like to give to you, and I really hope you want to read it. I hope I've been able to tell it enough. But however, I want to say that till today, I have not really been able to feel so much for a character, and it might be based on where I was brought up and how much I can relate to this story in a different way from like another perspective, which is why I gave the precedence that I did in the beginning. But just reading about it and seeing like, when someone wants to do so much with their life and you're wondering, how are you even going to get out of this? Like, you don't really see a possible way out for this certain character, but with every situation, with every opportunity that comes across, there's always some kind of like backtrack. So in a certain point of the book, she meets someone who can help her, but she then gets in trouble, and this person has to kind of like stay away from her for honestly the betterment of both, themselves. But then they kind of reconnect, towards the ending. I'm not going to spoil that for you, but that's the book. You're going to read this book and you're going to root for Adeni so much because she's so... it's so intense, it's so emotional, it's driven, it's character building, and there's a very interesting thing in this book. So the book is written in first person, and you're kind of reading from Adeni's point of view, and she doesn't really understand English to the fullest, so she's speaking some kind of broken English, some broken dialect. But you realize that like as she moves, there's a very touching place where she's moved to Lagos and she's working as a maid, and she, her boss has a very big library, so she's reading from time to time and she's learning facts about Lagos, and like she's reading like current affairs, and you can see that her vocabulary is improving. And it's very interesting to see that like you start the book with broken dialect, and as she starts to read and learn more about like the country or whatever, her English and her enunciation and everything improves along the line as well. I think it's just a very like minute but important detail that I really, really appreciate in the book as well. And something this book does very well is, as the journey is taking place, there's a very it lets you know the stakes, because trust me, I haven't even given you half of this book. There's a lot that goes on that kind of like keeps you on your toes, literally, because you kind of want this girl to be safe and you want her to not be subjected to some kind of punishment or consequences. And the side characters in this book as well also show difference. I might be reading too much into it, but I feel like with all the characters are going to come across in this book, you're going to be able to see different kind of people just like in someone's journey. The person who's there to help, the person who wants to help but can't really help, the person the person who really doesn't want to help you at all, but is some kind of connecting factor to like the greater good. It's such a reach, but I kind of have had time to think much more about it, and it's very important, it's very interesting. So with all that being said, The Girl with the Louding Voice, it's a very, very interesting, touching, thrilling, suspense-filled, emotional book, and I really hope you get time to read this, you know, if you want to, if I've been able to sell it well enough. But yeah, that's the book for today. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I've been Dami, and I will see you next time when I'm talking about, yet again, another book that I have been able to enjoy. Thank you so much for clicking. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, maybe, share, comment if you've read this book, and comment if you think there's another book like this that you'd like me to read or you would like to talk about, or, you know, whatever people say these days. But anyway, that's been the video for today. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.